Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm It's Robbie Rhino and I would like to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported the channel, who has subscribed to me, because we are now over 1,000 subscribers and it is something I never thought would be possible. I'm really ecstatic about that. It's something that I take a lot of enjoyment doing. I hope that you have all enjoyed the content that I've been putting out. There's loads more to come. But I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone, because without your support I wouldn't have been able to put out as much as I have, had the motivation to put out as many videos as I have, and it's absolutely fantastic to have such a great community. There will be a celebration going on in September, a giveaway to say thank you to everyone for supporting this channel, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I'll mention it on my Twitter as well as here on YouTube. I'll be giving away some tanks as well as some other stuff as well, but for the meantime we'll be talking about the tank in the background, the MBT 70, which this video is all about. So this is a Western Alliance Era 3 premium heavy tank, and it was buffed with the start of the evolution season on the 9th of August. If you look on the website, the figures for the buffs to this tank, they're all crossed out, and I'll put a screenshot in a minute when we talk about what has been buffed. But the buffs were made in the update. They did make it through to the update, so I thought I'd give this tank a spin, see how it performs now after the buffs, and see if it feels better than it did before, because it did struggle a little bit before, especially with the penetration, which they have actually buffed. But I was going to see if the changes that they made made any difference to the tank. So what did they buff with the start of the evolution season to the MBT 70? So they buffed the terrain resistances, they buffed the rotation speed from 35 to 40, they buffed the view range from 505 to 525, they buffed the reload time by 0.5 seconds, and they buffed the pen on the APF SDS to 400 and heat to 430. So nothing absolutely amazing. People are calling for the penetration buffs to this tank, same as me, but I thought I'd give it another go and see if I could have some good games, and I managed to have 3 really good games in sort of quick succession. They're not one after the other, but it was in the same session, so I'm not sure if it was the buffs or whether I just got lucky or came up against people that are playing drunk or very tired late at night. This does need a penetration buff, and I'm still going to be an advocate for trying to buff this tank a little bit more, but it's an absolutely insane silver maker, and it's a lot of fun to play because it is a very fast heavy tank. You can get through your games very quickly, pretty good at ramming, got a very high caliber gun, and it's just a lot of fun to play. So I'll tell you a tiny little bit about the MBT 70, and then we'll get talking about how I like to play it and what's going on in the background. So the MBT 70, it has a 152mm gun launcher. You can fire APF SDS heat, and the third ammunition choice is an ATGM. The shell velocity on the big caliber gun is actually really good. It's 1420 meters a second on the APF SDS. The heat is 683 meters a second, so not too great, but for heat that you're not going to be firing too much off because of all the spaced armor and the composite armor in Era 3, it doesn't matter too much. And the shell velocity on the ATGMs is 320 meters a second, which isn't too bad at all. The gun itself has 780 damage on its APF SDS and its heat rounds, and if you do manage to penetrate your ATGMs, you are dealing a whopping 1100 damage. With my commander and equipment setup, which I'll tell you about in just a second, you will have a reload time of 7.83 seconds for that 780 alpha damage, which is absolutely insane. The accuracy I've got it down to now is 0.19, which is crazy for a 152mm gun, and my aim time is now 2.3 seconds. And with the mobility equipment that I'm using, which is the traction system, I can now go 70.4 kilometers an hour forwards and backwards. Yes, that's right, it goes the same speed backwards as forward, which is a pretty unique thing for this tank, and it means that you can get down off those ridge lines really quickly. Horsepower for this tank is 1475, which is insane, and your power to weight ratio is 27.84, which is absolutely crazy. You have 3600 hit points, and with the buff to the view range, you have enough view range to spot out other heavy tanks in Era 3. Lastly, the traverse speeds on this tank are crazy for a heavy tank, at 44 degrees a second on the hull and 33.01 degrees a second on the turret with my commander and equipment setup. So what commander and equipment setup do I use on the MBT 70? Well, I use advanced loader, gun, stabilizer and traction system, and with my commander I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, rapid loading, steady aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, armor, angling, and track mechanic. You could probably swap out the track mechanic for something else. That's just because I've stuck this crew in from another tank, probably a World War II tank or something, but it seemed to work for me, so I kept it. Maybe it was a lucky setup, but the track mechanic you could probably invest into a different commander skill. There obviously is plenty to choose from. You could choose something like the general mechanic. You could do pain tolerance because you might be trying to ram things, or the controlled impact, something like that. Or you might try and improve your traverse speed even more by using clutch braking, or use the off-road driving to improve your speed over different terrain. But with those with that setup, I should say, you get those statistics that I've just mentioned, and I found that the setup works really well for me. This tank feels really good. It feels better than when it first came into the game. The penetration does still lack, and I'm not sure if it really is the buffs that change this vehicle a lot, but I seem to enjoy playing in this a lot more now. It makes you an absolute ton of silver if you make boosts. You can make close to 1 million silver in an epic game, which is absolutely insane. But that's enough talking about the stats of the MBT 70. In terms of this gameplay here on Thietvar Ridge, you can see that we've already picked up just shy of 8,000 damage, just shy of 500 assistance, and we've blocked looks like one shell for 330 damage, and now it's just 3 of us versus one last enemy remaining, M1A2. Unfortunately, our ATGM didn't pen him, but we managed to take his ramp, dealing an extra 660 damage. He takes us out, but that leaves him on 700 hit points, meaning that our full health T-72BU at the end of the game and the other heavy tank should be able to take him out pretty quickly. So that's a pretty good first game for this tank. They do get progressively better throughout this video, so do stick around for the last two, and especially the last game, because it's a pretty crazy game for the MBT 70, especially for someone that isn't the absolute best in the game. I'd say I'm slightly above average player, and I was having pretty poor games in this when this first came out, but now I had this pretty epic game, and I thought I'd leave this bit in at the end because it's quite funny just watching them bounce off of each other's turrets. But this T-72BU does take that one down as he should, and we finish in first place on that game with 4 kills, 8.6k direct damage, first class mastery badge, 476 assistance, and a profit of 345,695,000 silver. So that's it for the first game in the MBT 70. I'm going to skip over now to the second game and see how we get on. So then, you're joining me here on Pearl River in the MBT 70 in the second replay of today's video. We're going to head straight to the centre of this map, contest that location, because we have a nice view of all 4 corners of the map, and we can hopefully brawl it out with our heavies that are coming to support us and see how we get on. As it carries ATGMs, I like to load the ATGMs first, like I do in the sort of T-72BU, go in forwards, get an ATGM at the start of the battle, deal a hefty amount of damage, and then switch to my APF SDS rounds. As you can see, I do carry 5 heat rounds just in case I want to fire at long ranges, because it doesn't lose penetration over distance, in case I'm struggling to penetrate something like a big American heavy or a T-72BU or something like that. But we've come up here into the centre, we've got some heavy support, and we're going to see if we can get some shells, or our first ATGM in, and then some shells into a tank at the end of the battle. Now we're going to fire our ATGM here at this M1A2. Unfortunately, we don't get through all the composite armour at that distance, so we're going to switch to our APF SDS rounds. We're going to boost our combat rations for that extra little boost to the DPM, helped by the buff to the tank. You can see there that the reverse speed really does help you get out of trouble quickly if you are getting targeted by another enemy, which is a pretty unique thing that this tank has. And I was just amazed at the gun handling. Obviously, there wasn't a massive buff or anything to the gun handling in the buff that this tank received, but it just felt so nice playing this tank again, because maybe I was setting it up wrong the first time or something. But for this massive caliber gun, the gun handling was crazy, the accuracy, the bloom on the reticle felt like non-existent when I was tracking targets at mid to long ranges. And you can see here that the DPM, we really do put the work in. I'm just shooting again and again on reload at these tanks and absolutely annihilating them from above, and I'm stopping their advance towards the centre, and I'm chunking them down to a point where if I get into a brawl, the fact that I don't have fantastic armour in the MBT 70, it doesn't really matter all that much at all. It's an absolute sort of chunker of a tank. You chunk your opponents down with that crazy alpha damage, and yeah, my DPM now, if I am running the same setup, is 5,975 damage a minute, which is absolutely crazy. This is an absolute beast of a silver earner, and I've been sleeping on it for quite a while. So you're seeing here when I'm engaging a tech-free tank that should beat me, I'm managing to do some great damage with my DPM. I'm getting some support now, but I'm getting behind this Leopard 2A5 and we're just putting shot after shot into his side, and because of the poor penetration that this tank has, I am making sure that I'm trying to aim for weak spots or shoot into the sides as I do a little bit of a gun wiggle. I think I was having a couple of baggins before this, and then I managed to have this pretty good game. The penetration is 400mm on the standard APF SDS rounds, 430 on the heat rounds, and 450 on the ATGMs. The 400mm is low. It does struggle to get through the front of some of the heavy tanks in Era 3, but it's made up for by the gun handling in my opinion, and it just feels really nice at all kinds of distances, and the DPM is absolutely crazy. And as I've been waffling on, we've already made 8.1k damage, 589 assistance, and we've blocked a shell for 510. The armour is kind of non-existent as it's Era 3, and most things have fantastic penetration. You don't really have any spaced armour or anything like that, any composite armour to protect you from the ATGMs, but you do have that great gun handling, DPM, and fantastic reverse speeds to get out of trouble. So we're helping our friendly heavy tank take out this Leopard 2A5. I'm going to leave him to him now as he's a one-shot, and I'm going to come up behind these tanks here and try and get my damage over 10k in the MBT 70, which is always a nice thing to do, even if it is Era 3 of the Cold War game mode. I was trying to go in for a ram here on the M1, jump on top of him, but we manage to fire as he moves away with our auto-aim shot, jumping in style. As we are a one-shot, I'm just trying to back away with a fantastic reverse speed. He struggles to get his gun around in his track, and we get the last shell in, taking our damage total over 10k. So in that game we finished MVP with 2 kills, 10.1k direct damage, 589 assistance. We get our first mark of excellence on the MBT 70, 1611 base experience, and that was an all-round pretty decent game where we make 302,462,000 silver profit, and I believe that might have even been without a booster. So we're going to head on now into the third and final replay, which is an even better one than this one. So you're joining me here in the third and final replay in the MBT 70 for today's video on El Alamein, and I am loading up one of my ATGMs to start the battle. Hopefully I can catch out a medium tank or a light tank and try and put it into the sides or rear of them and do a nice 1100 alpha damage with these ATGMs. They can be quite useful. I didn't really make much use of them when I first started playing this tank, but I'm trying to utilise them as much as possible now. You see the fantastic speed getting into position to spot out the enemy early doors. I don't want to take any shots straight away because we don't have fantastic armour, and if they are firing gold then, or premium or whatever you want to call it, they will go through the front of my turret, things like a T72BU, because of their penetration. But we're just wiggling on this ridgeline, trying to get a shell into the front of the T72BU. I don't even know why I fired, because it has lots of the explosive reactive armour and composite armour all over the front of that tank. Should have waited for something like the BMP3 here, but you can see the fantastic reverse speed of the MBT 70 saves us there from taking the ATGM from that BMP3, and he would have penetrated us, and it would have been unfortunate. At this kind of distances, sort of mid-range, firing at that T72BU, we're probably okay to go through with 400mm of penetration if we're firing up into his lower plate. as the enemy BMP3 looks like he crashed off the cliff. We do get a lovely penetration into that T-72BU, and that fantastic reverse speed with the great power to weight ratio means that we can zoom out of the way. I'm trying not to go to the exact same position in case he's already looking, and I'm snapping these shots in with the fantastic gun handling. I don't want to take any damage just yet, I want to save it for the end, because you can get some pretty nice rams in this tank. You don't have fantastic armor, but you are a pretty hefty tank with some hit points to spare at the end of the battle. You can go in and ram and deal some extra damage, and the kind of gameplay that I'm playing in the MBT 70 since I've started to play it again is just like this support heavy. I can rush into position, I can get some spots off, play a sort of heavy scout role, if you will, and then I'm falling back with the great reverse and top speed of this tank and just supporting tanks that are engaged by other heavy tanks. Of course, you do have 3,600 hit points to play with. You should take shots if you can to get tanks out of the game or guns out of the game, but you do want to try and help and support your other heavies that do have better armor, like the Macavers, like the T-72BUs, Abrams challenge to that kind of thing. We got out of trouble there, and now we're going to get into a sticky situation with our teammates. We're all in this little dip here, and we're just going to have to defend from all angles, so I'm just trying to get shots in where I can. At that distance, auto-aiming into the side of a Macaver will be fine. From the front, that's going to be a very tough tank to deal with. Fortunately, he gets taken out by our Macaver Mark III, and now we're just trying to not get in anyone's way. The fantastic reverse speed helps with us getting out of their way, and now we're just trying to use our gun depression to get shots into these Soviet heavy tanks as they come over. In terms of the gun depression, you have 9 degrees, which is usable on most ridgelines. Some of the ridgelines like I'm using now are a bit too much, so I have to go up and expose myself. Unfortunately, we missed that shell. In terms of the elevation, 20 degrees, more than enough to use, and I find that the gun handling and the gun itself actually behaves itself really well with this setup. And you might want to try this setup and then just take out the track mechanic and invest it into something else, and you might find it more useful. So for now, we're just defending this dip with our teammates. It's not looking too great. We're down by 4 tanks, and we're just trying to get as many shots in as we can. We're going for drives wheels where we can to keep enemies in the open for our teammates to shoot. Unfortunately, that T-72B repaired. We're just aiming up another shot into the side, but we do bounce off with the low penetration. We got it back by 1 tank, so we're only 3 tanks down, but I've noticed there's a tank coming right after me. Trying to ask for help from my friendly tanks. I'm trying to track them on the ridgeline here, but it looks like this T-72B was coming in for a ram. We managed to track him, avoiding a shell from him, and now we're going to reverse out the way, try and bait them into this dip, because we do have teammates either side, or we can create a crossfire, and that's the kind of thing that you're going to want to do in the MBT 70, is create those crossfires, make your opponents turn so that the full 100mm of penetration doesn't matter at all, and you should be able to go through. There's that BMP3 again. We managed to reverse out the way, snap a shot into him, take him out before he manages to get any ATGMs into our side. And now we're going to support this heavy tank who has helped us. We get a shot into the side of the T-72B, and we're just baiting these enemies into stupidity. This is where this fantastic DPM comes into play. We're baiting them in, we're trying to track them on this ridge line, get some extra assistance and get some extra damage in. Trying to avoid getting shot from straight ahead of me, whilst also helping this Macaver in front of me. Unfortunately, there we only did track damage to that T-72BU. That's the kind of magical Soviet spaced armour or side armour that these tanks have. But we're just trying to help out this friendly, because they've supported us. We get a shot up there, it looks like through the drive rail into the front of the Macaver Mark I. And when you do hit your opponents, you do hit them hard, and you hit them often in this tank, and it's just a matter of trying to get your 400mm of penetration to work. But we're going to use our speed to try and get around the side. We get to the front of the driver of that Macaver, get a shell into him, and take him out. And now it's just this Leopard 2A5 in the dip. We're going to wait for our gun to fully aim, which isn't too long at all, get a shot into him, and that takes us to 9.3k damage. Fortunately, we reload just in time to get the killing blow into that T-72BU, and now we've turned that situation into a 5 versus 1 in our favour. It's just this chieftain left on the enemy team. We have enough tanks to take him out, so I feel like I was going to try and go in for a ram here. shooting on the move there, the run and gun commander skill coming in handy. He's tracked. I'm trying to wiggle so he doesn't track me. I'm going to try and get a ram in to finish this game off. We get another shell in, a ram in for just shy of 500. We're going to keep nudging him to keep him tracked, and then we get the final shell in. Little gun wiggle there to celebrate that game, where we pick up 12.5k damage and 1400 assistance. We finish with 5 kills, finishing an MVP slot. We actually blocked 2.4k damage, or just shy of 2.5k damage, which is crazy for the MBT 70. That doesn't happen too often. 1908 base experience points and 834,801 silver, with a ×2 silver booster, I believe, and an absolutely fantastic game in this tank, which feels a lot better than before. I'm not sure it's due to the buffs, but this setup maybe just works a lot better, and I think if they did buff the penetration on this tank just a little bit more, it would become one of the elite silver earners in Era 3. So I hope you've enjoyed this video with these 3 replays in the MBT 70. Thank you once again for your support in helping me get to over 1,000 subscribers, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.